The process of how I create things is still sort of a mystery to me, but I also think that that mystery is what keeps me going. I like to watch something unravel in front of me. I think churches where I first performed, and this was back before the church even had a microphone, so I think most of the songs went to whoever could project the loudest. How well you sang was secondary. First, who could project? I carry a sense of projection in everything. Even in the writing, sometimes I feel like I have to write something to make sure that the people 100 miles away can read it. Like the words have to leap off the page, And even in my theater training, you have to perform as if the person all the way at the back of the audience is standing right in front of you. This sense of making your aura bigger than yourself. It was really my mother. My mother was really into writing. She was very into literature. She always kept lots of poetry in the house. There's books by Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou everywhere. Just a really strong sense of just Black literature. That persuaded me to kind of move into that. And then when I was about 13 or 14, I started doing underground magazines or zines. Yeah, I felt like that was an excellent way to kind of get across the writing because, I was reading punk zines at the time. And, of course, I grew up in probably the midst of, like, DIY culture. And what DIY culture teaches you, of course, is the powers that be are never going to talk to you specifically. If there's something that needs to be addressed, you yourself have to take control of that. And so that's where my writing always came out of. Punk rock was, at the time, I felt like it was just a different type of church. It was just a different type of cult with its meanings, with its rules, with its hierarchies and stuff. And so, I don't know, I felt that I made a pretty substantial home there. I've always written in a way to not be erased because I know that if I didn't tell my story firsthand, it'd be lost to the ages. I still, to this day, don't see in popular culture where anyone is writing specifically with me in mind. So I know that it's my job to do it. You're like, I am right here. I'm staying right here. I wanted a new expression. I wanted a new way to create that would kind of combine like my writing alongside dance, alongside just a general theater practice. So I was living at this warehouse in Oakland and we had a ton of space. So I just started having open dance classes for anyone that would participate. And it was mostly kids in the scene, mostly punk kids, mostly different artists that didn't really move, but I wanted an eclectic scene of just, people that were interested in movement as art. And so in 2009, I started the Brontez Purnell Dance Company, and we did our first show at the Berkeley Art Museum that winter. I did a documentary about the work of an experimental gay Black dancer whose career spanned from the late 60s to the mid-80s in San Francisco. I heard about the work of Ed Mock well after I started dancing. It was one of those things where I felt like I connected to an ancestor that I didn't know that I had. It was amazing to read about his life, and it filled in a lot of pieces about my own life. I have to say I was pretty blessed and pretty lucky to have a very understanding and loving family. Some of the stories I hear from other people who grew up queer are just completely terrifying. My family was pretty, I would say more or less your standard conservative Southern Black Christian family, but also just a really strong sense of love. There are kids I know who grew up with 2 and 3 times the money that I grew up with, even with parents that could be considered liberals, but still their sexuality was a problem for them. And I think it really leaves a stain on you as a person if you don't have the support and love of your parents. And so I think one of the biggest keys of my success was I had supportive parents. And supportive parents are money in the bank. Whenever I'm around my family, I feel a definite sense of grounding. Like I still am very much, yeah, I'm still very much the boy that just grew up around here. I was 5 years old and I was watching the Dukes of Hazzard. And I thought that Bo and Luke Duke were two of the most handsome men I ever seen. And I used to think, oh, I want them to come up in the General Lee and just drive away with me. The General Lee. So at 5, I had this fantasy of hopping into a Confederate flag car and going away to marry Bo and Luke Duke. That was a problematic fantasy to have at 5, but now I know better.
Take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Alabama.
Mountain Mama, walk in the light.
I know. The South is such a peculiar incubator and a particular region that's been at war with itself, I think, from the inception. So I think it's very, very much up to us to notice these things and chart these things and speak about these things. I would like for Alabama to be very much brought into the future because Alabama reaps very radical harvest, and so I do believe in it as a spiritual center.
By day and by night, love is the light of the world.